Hello one and all, this is Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. This time around, Watch Dogs Legion for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Google Stadia, PC, and the Xbox Series X, S, and PlayStation 5 upon release of those consoles. Watch Dogs Legion is of course the third entry in the Watch Dogs franchise, where Watch Dogs 1 was relatively underwhelming and a pretty big disappointment, with Watch Dogs 2 being a very underrated hit in 2016. I really enjoyed Watch Dogs 2, and I was really looking forward to Watch Dogs Legion because this game not only promised to be better and bigger than Watch Dogs 2, but also promised a new mechanic. Set in post-Brexit London, this game, Legion, doesn't feature a protagonist in the same way that Watch Dogs had Aiden and Watch Dogs 2 had Marcus. Instead, this game is built on the idea and the premise that anybody off the street could be the protagonist. Anybody can be a part of DedSec after DedSec has been blamed for a missile attack on London. And the thing that makes it even more interesting is the fact that these characters that you can play as not only are randomly generated but also have random skills. Certain characters will have the ability to have specific cars or weapons if you are able to recruit them. Other characters have specific abilities, both passive and active, like taking a longer time to recover from an injury or even bust people out of jail a lot quicker. Depending on what characters you have a part of your team, these abilities run across every character, so you don't have to specifically play as one character per se to have those abilities. Say if you have the bail bondsman that is able to get people out of jail a lot quicker, then even if you're not playing as him, you will still have that ability because he's a part of the team, which I really enjoy because it may be a character that you don't necessarily enjoy playing with, but you enjoy their abilities. And if that's the case, that really alleviates that potential problem. Another big thing about this game is the option of permadeath. If you accept at the beginning of the game to have permadeath, and one of your characters die, of course that means that character is gone forever. But if you turn it off, that means of course they will either go to jail or go to the hospital and come back a little while later. I'm playing with permadeath on, and it really heightens the feel of urgency and of course fear that if I take too much damage I might lose this character, and depending on what character I'm playing as, that could mean the loss of some really good abilities or weapons. Now when it comes to recruiting these characters, these NPCs that actually become playable characters, a majority of these characters will only unlock after you've completed a specific mission for them. Usually these missions boil down to going here and destroying something, or going here and taking out this adversary. Though sometimes you will actually have mid-challenges that pop up that if you complete you will get extra money, which is always nice. Gear is a big deal when it comes to this game, just like it was in Watch Dogs 2. And one of the earliest pieces of gears you can get is the Spider Bot, which you can sneak around with and actually electrocute foes if you are able to perform a takedown. I really enjoy the Spider Bot. I think that's one of the most interesting aspects when it comes to the gameplay, because a lot of this game, just like Watch Dogs 2, is rooted in the idea of stealth. The gunplay is mostly the same as any open world third-person shooter. When it comes to melee combat, when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, they've actually added to the melee combat, but it also feels a lot looser and a lot more uncontrollable. I don't necessarily care for the hand-to-hand combat. You're able to dodge and counter punch and strike and kick. You're able to grab blocking opponents at times. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, depending on the opponent. And usually it boils down to kind of like this weird ice skating fight. I don't know if it's because I've played other open world games with better driving or just racing games in general, but I do not necessarily care for this version of driving. This game to me doesn't have the best driving. It feels weird. I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't feel too loose. It doesn't feel too stiff. It just doesn't feel really good. It doesn't feel enjoyable most of the time to actually drive around in the city, even if the city is absolutely gorgeous to look at. There are several mini games that I've encountered thus far as well, including soccer, darts, and of course the Fight Club. Technically, the game is definitely flawed. I've seen frame rate drops, I've seen a lot of screen tearing, I've seen out of sync audio when it comes to the dialogue. I haven't had any game breaking bugs or glitches, though I've seen moments where the AI will get stuck on a wall or something like that. But I've noticed that the game will crash anytime I try to go to the main menu, which is very weird. Overall, Watch Dogs Legion is a solid experience. I don't think it was this big monumental jump in quality like it was between Watch Dogs and Watch Dogs 2. I think it definitely has its moments. I think it has a gameplay loop that is very good if you're into that repetitive nature of going and doing things more stealthily with a few gadgets here and there, very similar to what you had offered in Watch Dogs 2. The plot thus far isn't the strongest. I don't think that it actually benefits from the fact that they do not have a focused protagonist to really drive home the plot. That might change as I progress through the story, but thus far I haven't been that impressed with the Watch Dogs Legion story. From a gameplay perspective, it actually is very good. It's very similar to what you've seen in Watch Dogs 2 and even to a certain extent in Watch Dogs 1. I don't feel that the idea of this anybody can be the protagonist has been executed well enough to make me say, hey, I want to play with every character that I recruit. For those who do have an Xbox Series X or S or a PlayStation 5 pre-ordered, I would actually suggest that you wait for the next gen version to come out. I think from a performance perspective, it will be a lot more enjoyable of an experience than if you're playing on a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One. But if you don't want to wait or you don't have those systems pre-ordered and you did enjoy Watch Dogs 2, I think that this is a worthy purchase. If you didn't enjoy Watch Dogs 2 or you're not really into more stealth-based open world games with a very mediocre story, I would suggest that you either save your money and play something else, or if you haven't played Watch Dogs 2, I suggest go back and play that. So there you have it. This has been Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. Watch Dogs Legion for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Google Stadia, PC, and the Xbox Series X, S, and PlayStation 5 upon release of those consoles. Now, if you don't mind, I have to go out, maybe find someone to recruit that would want me to steal a car and drive it into a river, or even set off some fireworks. And after we liberate each town, those who are trying to dominate London will have no choice but to say, "Oh Lordy."